Hi everyone, trust you all are doing well. So in the previous episode, we displayed all the articles on our homepage. So in our pages.index, this one right here. So as you can see, we get them with getStaticProps. Now what we want to do in this episode is if we click the read more button, we need to go to that article. So basically the URL will look like this. So /articles / whatever dynamic number we're clicking on. So it can either be 2, 1, or whatever. Okay. So in order to make the URL look like that, we need to actually go to our pages folder. We need to create a new file. So in our pages folder, we create a new folder and we're going to call this one articles. Inside the articles folder, we need to create a component called article. But in order to receive that dynamic value at the end of the URL, we need to create 2 square brackets. And inside that id.js. Okay, so this is the parameter that we're going to capture. Right, so let's quickly create our component. Now in here, so I'm just going to do that. I'm just going to call this one article. Okay, and then we're going to receive an article as a property like that. Right, so we need to bring in a couple of things. We're going to make use of the layout, but I just want to import a couple of things. Let's import the main layout, okay, from our layouts folder. For those that are new, we got a layouts folder right there. We've got the main layout in there. The other one that we need to import is, well, we need to import Axios. So let's do that. So Axios from libaxios. So Axios is inside this folder right there. Okay. The another thing that we need to import is, well, is the head. Okay, so like that. For anyone that's new to the channel, so in our lib folder Axios, the base URL that we're hitting right here is basically localhost 8000. So if I go to my env file right there, so you can see localhost 8000. So let me quickly go to this URL. All right, so in the URL, you can see we've got localhost 8000 API v1 articles. So this is the different articles that we basically gonna get all the paths from. Another thing is if we click onto the individual article, so if we go to the individual article, you can see that we got an API v1 article / obviously with a number at the end. Okay, so that's going to be useful to get the individual article if we pass the parameter of the ID right through to the basically Axios to fetch that article. Okay, so let's quickly set this all up in our ID right here. Now, the first thing is I'm just going to make use of my layout. I'm going to be a little bit lazy. I'm just going to copy this part and paste it in here. Since we already bring in our layout right there, the main layout, I'm just going to change this to article to make use of that. So that's the only thing I have to change. You see, I don't have to type too much. Just copy and paste. Now, the next thing, I'm just going to give myself some room. The next thing that we need to do is we need to bring in getStaticProps and getStaticPaths. Now let's start off with the first one. We need to let Next.js know all the different URLs that we need to set up for all the articles. We need to get all the paths for all the articles that we have. So let's do that. So we're just going to export async a function, and we're going to call this one getStaticPaths. Paths like this. All right, so in here we need to go and get basically the different paths. So in order to do that, we're going to basically create a constant called the response, and we're going to await from Axios, the one that we just imported at the top, Axios, and then we're going to get all the different paths from our URL API /v1 / articles like this. Okay, so that is basically the URL that we're going to get all the different paths from. All right, so that after this, what we need to do is we need to return an object. Now, by default, we're just going to say the fallback. We're going to set that to false. The next thing we need to do, the different paths that we need to basically supply, is we're going to go to the response.data. Okay, so if we go to our local host right here, you will see there's a response data. Okay, data. And what we want to do is we want to map over that data. So all the individual articles. So as you can see right here, So we want to loop over these articles and we just want to retrieve the ID. Okay, so that we in the map, and we're just going to say article. We're going to set that to an arrow function. Actually, this. All right, we're going to set it to an arrow function, and then we just want to set the params. All right, so the different params, we want to set that to the ID. We're going to equal that to our article.id. All right, this needs to, you must make sure that this is a string. Okay, but since we set it up our structure, the ID, we set it by default as a string, not as a number. Okay, so that's by default a string, so I don't have to worry about this. Okay, awesome stuff. So now our getStaticPaths is all done. Now the next thing that we need to do is we need to basically pass the article prop to our article right there. Okay, so let's do that. So we're just going to say export async, because now we need to fetch the individual articles. So a function, and we can just say getStaticProps. Now this part right here, we need to basically receive the params and pass the params basically to Axios. Right, so let's quickly constant, and we're going to call this one a response. We're going to equal that to a weight, Axios, and then we're just going to get our article. Right, so let's do that. So, and you know what, I'm just going to use backticks for this one. So /API/v1 articles. Now we need to pass in the params. So article 1, so as you can see right here, article 1, and then we basically whatever article we need to get. Right, so in that we're just going to say params.id. We want to receive the ID. Okay, so that is basically that part right there. So let's console log this quickly, this response, to see if we can actually see if we can get an article. Let's go to our home page, or our home page right here. So if I click on this, so let's click on that. Obviously, that's not going to work because we need to add those parameters. So let's go to our index page quickly. So in here, let's make this clickable. All right, so I'm just going to add some object to backticks. What we're going to do is we're going to go to articles / and then obviously pass in the article ID. So $param is article.id. Okay, so if I refresh this, let's see if we can click on this. So that needs to go there. So if I click on that, as you can see, we go to article ID, but don't worry about that part right here because we're not finished yet. Okay, so just make sure you make that link clickable. All right, so let's go to our D. We're not finished yet. I just console logged our response. So if we go down right here, you can see. So in our response, we go to data. Then we need to go to the article, and then we can basically have access to the article. So as you can see, the attributes are object. Inside the attributes is basically the title in the body, and then obviously the link. As you can see, it's access right there. Okay, so we need to go to the response, data, then article to get the single article. Let's do that. So in here, what I'm going to do, we can set a constant, and we can set the article. We can equal that. We need to go to the response.data.article. All right, so if we even go to the article itself, you will see the article right there, because the article is the one that wraps the whole data that we receive. Okay, just like this. All right, so I'm just going to remove the console log. All right, now what we need to do, we need to return the props, because if we go in here, you will see there is nothing returned. So let's return an object. So return, and this will be the props. Now the props is the one that we pass through to our article at the top right there. So let's do that. Just the article like this. All right. So because this is the article that I'm setting to that article. All right. So if you wanted to do everything in one line, obviously you can do this. Actually, let me copy this part right here and paste it in there. Instead of doing that, we can pass it like this. Okay, so if I refresh this, that's not supposed to give me any errors. Right, so as you can see, we get to this part right there. They just says enter because this is that we receive right here. So let me quickly make this an empty fragment. Now we brought in our head right there. So let's just do that. And I'm just going to set the title. Title, we're going to set it to Mozzie. Pipe, and I'm just going to set it to our article. Dot attribute. Dot attributes, I think, dot title. Right, so if, as you can see, the title is at the top right there. Okay, let's move on. I'm just going to make this very simple for myself because I just want to do this. You can obviously style it. I just want to keep it as simple as possible. So this is, I'm just going to copy this part right here, make it simple, just like this, and I'm just going to add a paragraph. Now this part is just, instead of the title, this is just going to be for the body. Right, so as you can see, we've got our title and our body right there. So I'm just going to add quickly a couple of classes. Right, that's basically it all done. So you can obviously style it however you want, and that's basically just to show you how it's done. All right, so the most important thing is you want to go and get something dynamic at the end right there. You need the paths for Next.js to know the different paths of all the articles. And then you need the props to pass, to receive, to basically get the article and pass that article to your component. And then inside your component, you just basically add it in here. All right. So thank you guys for watching. Do all the YouTube stuff, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Adios.